Live to Johannesburg, South Africa for the 15th summit of Brics. There is Cyril Ramaphosa, President of South Africa. Let's take a listen to what he has to say.
It must be compatible with a multilateral trading system that supports a developmental agenda. The type of developmental agenda that the 5 countries that are members of Brics have embraced right from the onset. We require a fundamental reform of the global financial institutions so that they can be more agile and responsive to the challenges facing developing economies. In this respect, the new development bank, established by Brics countries in 2015, is leading the way. Since its formation, it has demonstrated its ability to mobilize resources for infrastructure and sustainable development in emerging economies without conditionalities. Earlier, before coming into the session, I was speaking to the president of the New Development Bank, and she was outlining to me how ready and the New Development Bank is in terms of supporting the development agendas of various countries. And we applaud this, and we appreciate this. Brics economies have emerged as powerful engines of global growth. Yet the rapid economic, technological, social changes underway create new risks for areas such as employment, equality, as well as poverty in many of the Brics countries. It is quite heartwarming to hear you as business people, as one listened to Mr. Chabalala's report, also focusing on issues such as poverty reduction and elimination, and inequality as well. It isn't often that you hear such very positive and forward-looking messages from the business community. So it's wonderful to be in a forum under the aegis of Brics that you as business leaders are in tune with the developmental agenda that needs to be pursued to lift the people who live in Brics countries and beyond out of the ravages of poverty and inequality. We therefore call on the business community to join hands with us to identify solutions to these and many other challenges affecting our respective economies. From a South African perspective, there is massive untapped potential for investment in our country and indeed on the African continent as well. In recognition of this potential, the theme for this 15th Brics Summit is Brics and Africa, the partnership for mutually accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism. Africa is a continent of great opportunity in industrialization process in a variety of sectors. This continent is rich in the critical minerals that will drive business success in the 21st century. The continent has resources of lithium, vanadium, cobalt, platinum, palladium, nickel, copper, rare earth minerals, rhodium, and many others. And these are the minerals that abound and are driving economic activity across the world. African countries have made it clear that the investors of choice, those who will come and invest in our continent, but also process the resources here close to source, so that African countries do not export rock and sand, but export finished products as we would like to do. We are developing stronger regional value chains that will connect a number of African countries, providing investors with diversity, with strength as well as with resilience. The African Continental Free Trade Area creates a single market that is expected to grow to 1.7 billion people and nearly $7 trillion in consumer and business spending by 2030. The success of the African Continental Free Trade Area will require a massive investment in infrastructure. We need to mobilize the substantial financing that is needed to build the roads, the ports, the rail, the energy and telecommunications network that will enable industrialization and trade. It is also pleasing to hear that you as the business community, you also see this area as opportunities that you can invest in. Growth in African economies will be driven in the main by small and medium enterprises. This requires focused as well as effective support to these businesses. It is important that specific financing be directed also to women-owned businesses so that they can harness the benefits of the Continental Free Trade Area. And we in Africa, as we seek to grow and develop, we are focusing on the empowerment of the women of our continent who have been held back through the years of colonialism, and in our case, through the years of apartheid, through protocols and laws. And we are saying we need to free the women of our continent so that they can trade, so that they can be in business and grow the economies of our various countries. Africa has a young, digitally connected and urbanizing population, a population which provides a stable workforce for companies in the future. The investment in skills development is continuing to grow. These factors all position Africa as the next frontier of productivity and growth. The Brics countries have an opportunity to contribute to and participate in Africa's growth story. This can be achieved through greater cooperation in areas such as infrastructure, agriculture, manufacturing, new energy, and the digital economy. I was pleased to hear that these are also areas that you as business people are focusing on. South Africa has an important position in growing the African market, facilitated by the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and other free trade agreements. South Africa's industrial strength, our mineral endowments, and our large market opportunities provides a compelling value proposition for companies wanting to establish their businesses here. South Africa has significant industrial capacity with Africa's most advanced industrial innovation and fabrication base. Firms that have invested here recognize that South Africa has deep local capital markets and strong financial systems. We have a diverse and sophisticated economy, and this country possesses world-class infrastructure, skills, abundant natural resources, industrial clusters, and a host of incentives to support investment. And many investment and partnership opportunities exist in renewable energy, in infrastructure, in aquaculture, in ICT, automotives, pharmaceuticals, and advanced manufacturing, amongst others. It is clear from the report that we have just received that this has been a very productive business forum. And I'd like, as I end, to commend the Brics Business Council, the respective ministers from the Brics countries and officials, and all business leaders who have made a meaningful contribution for the success of this business forum, and to have all of you, almost 1,500, I'm told, to have this, what I see as a very successful business forum. I sincerely hope that your participation in this Brics Business Forum will yield the productive outcomes that are required for us to catapult Brics economies towards a more equitable and accelerated growth. In 2 hours or so, the Brics leaders will sit together in a retreat to discuss a number of Brics-related matters, and one of those is the expansion of Brics. A number of countries, some of which are represented here, are seeking to be part of this Brics family. And we appreciate that. It goes to show that the Brics family is growing in its importance, in its stature, and also in its influence in the world. And we will be taking into account the various desires of various countries to be part of Brics. So we hope to take into account the report or discussions here as well as we consider the way forward with Brics. Your participation here really strengthens the Brics story. It confirms that Brics is an important player in the geopolitical and economic architecture of the world. And so we hope that it will continue to be so. Thank you very much for participating. We thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for those remarks. It is now my pleasure to invite the President of the Federative Republic of Brazil, His Excellency President Lula da Silva, to take the podium. Please join me in welcoming the President.
I'd like to salute President Ramaphosa, President of South Africa. I'd also like to give greetings to the ministers, the NDB President, Comrade Dilma Rousseff, also the business people here in attendance. And I'd like to, above all, salute the South African government for hosting this business forum. I'd like to also say how pleased I am for sharing this event with the other leaders of the Brics countries. I would also like to thank all the business people in attendance, particularly the Business Council Board, which is celebrating its 10th anniversary. Establishing partnerships among the private sectors is a very relevant dimension for the Brics, and which gives life and continuity to relations between the countries. Since the first summit of heads of state and government, our share in the global economy has been increasing. We have surpassed the G7 already, accounting for 32% of the world GDP in purchasing power parity. Forecasts indicate that emerging and developing markets are the ones that will show the highest growth rate in the coming years. While, according to the IMF, while industrialized countries are expected to grow by an average of 2.7% in 2022, dropping to 1.4% to 2024. The projected growth for developing countries is of 4% for this period. This shows that the dynamism of the economies in the global south and the Brics is its driving force. The Brics international foreign stock increased 370% between 2022 and 2029 and 2022, and in today almost 400 companies from the bloc operate in Brazil. After the 6 years of standing still, Brazil is going to create quality jobs again. It's going to fight poverty again and will increase the income of Brazilian families. 2 weeks ago, I presented the new PAC Growth Acceleration Program. The plan provides for resuming suspended projects, accelerating ongoing projects, and also selecting new projects. It is a comprehensive program with many opportunities that may be of interest of investors from Brics countries. We hope to mobilize $340 billion for modernizing our logistics infrastructures with investments in motorways, railways, waterways, ports and airports. We will also give priority to the generation of solar and wind power, as well as biomass, ethanol and biodiesel. We have immense potential for generating green hydrogen. We shall establish partnerships between government and the business community in all areas through concessions, public-private partnerships, and direct contracts. In order for investment to grow again and drive development, we need to ensure more credibility, predictability, and legal certainty, as well as political and social certainty for the private sector. For this reason, I have advocated the idea of greater financial integration, where we could have a new reference unit which would not replace our national currencies. The unmet financing needs of developing countries remains high. The lack of a substantial reform from traditional financial institutions limit the volume and the credit modes offered by existing banks. The decision of establishing the new development bank represented a milestone in effective collaboration among emerging economies. Our joint bank must be a global leader in the financing of projects that address the most pressing challenges of our time. By diversifying payment sources in local currencies, increasing its partner network and its membership, NDB constitutes a strategic platform to promote cooperation between developing countries. In this strategy, engagement with the African Development Bank will be central to this. At the multilateral level, the Brics stood out for being a force that works in favor of a fairer, more predictable, equitable global trade. We cannot accept a greedy neocolonialism that imposes trade barriers and discriminatory measures under the guise of protecting the environment. As of December, Brazil will hold the G20 presidency. The presence of 3 Brics members in the G20 Troika will be a great opportunity for us to move forward on issues of interest to the Global South. We already have South Africa's participation, but the group's representativeness may be increased with the entry of the African Union and other countries of the continent.
It's just a water break.
I've been talking about developing, and then suddenly, I miss the main important source of life, water. Dear friends, upon taking office as president of my country again, I am resuming the guidelines of Brazilian foreign policy. We started to rebuild South American integration. We have resumed our partnerships with the US, China, and the European Union. We hosted the summit of the Amazon countries. We still had to return to Africa. It is unacceptable that in 2022, Brazil's trade with Africa has dropped by 1/3 when compared to 2013, when it was almost $30 billion. Trade flow with Africa still corresponds to only 3.5% of Brazil's foreign trade. Our trade agreement network is still in its infancy. Existing agreements with Southern Africa and Egypt date from my second term. Today, over 65% of Mercosur exports to Africa went to African countries with which there is no agreement in force. There is plenty of room to grow. In addition to a past that unites us, we also share a common vision of the future. In my first 2 terms, the African continent was a priority for Brazil. I have made 12 trips to Africa and have been to 21 countries. Brazil is back on the continent where it should never have left. Africa has vast opportunities and enormous potential for growth. To discuss the relaunch of trade with the continent, Brazil brought together the heads of the trade promotion sectors of all our representations in African countries here in Johannesburg last June. Africa is building an ambitious free trade zone project. 54 countries, 1.3 billion people with over $3 trillion in GDP in this continent, which is the youngest in the world from an age perspective and will be the most popular by 2100, offers countless opportunities for Brazilian products such as food and beverages, oil, iron ore, vehicles and iron and steel manufacturers. Africa has 65% of the arable land available in the world, and it has a strong vocation for being an agricultural powerhouse with the capacity to feed its people and offer global food security solutions. Combining investment and technology, Brazil has developed modern tropical agricultural techniques that can be successfully replicated in Africa. Through the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, we have turned the Cerrado into an area of high agricultural productivity, and we can replicate this experience in the African savanna. My government has also resumed public policies to support family farming, essential to fight food insecurity and hunger that affects our continent. The More Food program, which I relaunched last June, allows small farmers to have access to financing to purchase tractors, tools, and harvesters. As in the past, a version of the More Food program for food should be resumed as another aspect of Brazilian South-South cooperation. Africa is also at the heart of the digital and energy transitions. Internet coverage already reaches most of the African population, and digital innovations and financial technology services companies are multiplying, strengthening the Brazilian health complex. Strengthening may lead to ample opportunities for cooperation with South America. The African continent has important ore reserves such as, essential ores such as lithium or cobalt that will play a strategic role. So that we do not remain as exporters of primary products, we must make the most of this opportunity to forge the integration of our production chains and add value to the goods and services that we produce in a sustainable manner. Africa is the region of the world that emits the least amount of greenhouse gases. However, this does not mean that it does not have to face the most perverse consequences of global warming, such as droughts, floods, fires, and cyclones. Brazil and many African countries have comprehensive plans to renew their energy mixes. We share the responsibility of caring for tropical rainforests and preserving biodiversity. We share the common concern of fighting the desertification process. Environmental and ecosystem services provided by rainforests to the world, they must be paid for in a fair and equitable manner. Social diversity products can generate jobs and income and offer alternatives to the predatory exploitation of natural resources. These are the pillars of the ecological transition plan that we will launch soon. For our economic and productive integration to flourish, it would be necessary to increase sea and air connections between the two sides of the Atlantic. It is inexplicable that we do not have direct flights between São Paulo and Johannesburg, Cairo or Dakar, essential for increasing the flow of people, trade and tourism. Therefore, I believe it to be very important the proposal made by the Brics Business Council of establishing a multilateral agreement of air services for the group with the main national transport and aviation authorities from the countries. Very relevant proposal because the Brics have a unique chance of shaping the global development path. You, business people, you're part of this effort. Together, our countries make up a third of the global economy. This relevance will grow with the admission of new full members and dialogue partners. Collaboration between the public and private sector is vital for harnessing this potential and achieving lasting results. Thank you very much and good luck.
All right, that's President of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. There he is, shaking hands with President Ramaphosa of South Africa, who just spoke right before him. It is the Brics Business Forum there in Johannesburg. And of course, we're going to continue the coverage. This is the Global Business Report here on Arise News. And we're keeping it live. We're keeping it live.
Video. I now ask that the video recording be started.
Dear President Ramaphosa, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'm pleased to greet the government and business representatives, experts and industry specialists who have gathered to this meeting of the Brics Business Forum. I would like to note that holding such business forums on a regular basis, along with the systematic work of the Brics Business Council, which brings together top businessmen and heads of major companies of the 5 countries, plays an immense practical role in promoting mutual trade and investments, enhancing cooperation ties, and expanding direct dialogue among business communities. and thus effectively contributes to accelerated socio-economic growth of our states and achievement of sustainable development goals. It is important that this forum focuses on such pressing issues as the post-pandemic economic recovery of the Brics states, improvement of citizens' well-being, industrial modernization, development of efficient transport and logistics chains, stimulation of equitable technology transfers. These challenges and complex tasks have to be dealt with amidst the increasing volatility in stock, currency, energy, and food markets, coupled with a strong inflationary pressures stemming from inter alia the irresponsible large-scale money emission by a number of countries seeking to mitigate the effects of the pandemic, which has led to the accumulation of private and public debt. International economic situation is also seriously affected by the illegitimate sanctioned practice and illegal freezing of assets of sovereign states, which essentially amounts to the tramping upon all the basic norms and rules of free trade and economic life, norms and rules that not so long ago seemed immutable. Resource shortages, increased inequality, rising unemployment, and aggravation of other chronic problems of the world economy are the direct consequences. Prices for food, basic agricultural products, and crops have skyrocketed, and it is the most vulnerable, poor countries that are hit hardest. Importantly, and in this circumstance, the Brics states have stepped up their interaction and our joint work to ensure economic growth and sustainable development brings concrete, tangible results. More and more joint projects are launched. Mutual trade is growing, industry contacts are expanding. Above all, our cooperation is based on the principles of equality, partner support, and respect to each other's interests. And that is what is the core of our association's forward-looking strategic course. The course that reflects the aspiration of the larger part of the international community, so-called global majority. The figures speak for themselves. Over the last decade, mutual investments among Brics states have increased sixfold. Their overall investment in global economy have doubled, and their total exports have reached 20% of the world's exports. As for Russia, the trade volume with the Brics partners has increased by 40.5% and reaching the record of 230, even more than 230 billion. And the first half of this year, it grew by 35.6% as compared with the same period in 2022, and it reached $134.7 billion. I would also like to point out that the share of the Brics countries, with their population totaling more than 3 billion people, now accounts to nearly 26% of the global GDP. And our 5 countries are ahead of G7 in terms of purchasing power parity, with 35.1% against 30% forecast for 2023. The objectives and irreversible process of de-dollarization of our economic ties is gaining pace. We are working to fine-tune effective mechanisms of mutual settlements and monetary and financial control. As a result, the share of US dollar export and import operations within Brics is declining. Last year, it was only 28.7%. In fact, this summit is to discuss the entire range of issues related to the transition to national currencies in all areas of economic cooperation between our 5 nations. The new Brics Development Bank, which has already become a credible alternative to existing Western development institutions, has a great role to play in these efforts. It is only natural that enhancing connectivity and creating new resilient transport routes has become a shared priority in cooperation between our 5 countries. In this context, the Brics Business Council's initiative to elaborate modern intermodal logistics solutions and develop railway transport corridors is of particular importance. For this part, Russia actively works to redirect its traffic and logistics flows to reliable foreign partners, including Brics states. Our flagship project include the Northern Sea route and the new international North-South transport corridor. These 2 major transport routes aim to provide the shortest and most cost-effective trade routes to link major industrial, agricultural, energy hubs with consumer markets. With regards to the Northern Sea route, I would like to emphasize that Russia has already adopted and launched a large-scale, multi-year plan to develop its infrastructure. We intend to build fuel terminals, hub ports, to ensure connections with road and rail transport. Icebreaking fleet is expanding, first of all by commissioning nuclear-powered vessels that have no analog in the world. As for the North-South transport corridor, it will connect Russian ports of the Northern Seas and the Baltic and with offshore terminals in the Persian Gulf and Indian Ocean, thereby providing opportunities to increase cargo transportation between Eurasian and African countries. Besides, this will certainly give impetus to developing new industrial, trade, and logistics facilities along those routes. Russia stands for greater cooperation within the Brics on reliable and uninterrupted supplies of energy and food resources to the world markets. We are consistently increasing supplies of fuel, agricultural products, and fertilizers to countries of the global south and making a significant contribution to strengthening global food and energy security, addressing acute humanitarian issues, and fighting hunger and poverty in the countries in need. All these issues in particular were discussed in depth at the recent Russia-Africa summit. For example, last year, trade in agricultural products between Russia and African states grew by 10% and amounted to $6.7 billion. In January-June this year, it increased by another record 60%. Our country is and will remain a responsible supplier of food to the African continent. Russian grain exports to Africa amounted to 11.5 billion tons in 2022 and almost 10 million tons in the first 6 months of 2023. And this is despite the unlawful sanctions imposed on us that seriously hinder the export of Russian food products and complicate transport, logistics, insurance, and bank payments. Russia is being deliberately obstructed in the supply of grain and fertilizers abroad, and at the same time we are hypocritically blamed for the current crisis situation in the world market. This has been clearly seen in the implementation of the so-called grain deal, concluded with the participation of UN Secretariat and initially aimed at ensuring global food security, reducing the threat of hunger, and providing aid to the poorest countries. We have repeatedly drawn attention to the fact that in a year under the deal, a total of 32 million tons of cargo has been exported from Ukraine, of which over 70% have reached high and upper middle income countries, including the European Union, first of all, and only about 3% have gone to the least developed countries, less than 1 million tons. None of the terms of the so-called deal concerning the lifting of sanctions imposed on Russian exports of grain and fertilizers to world market have been fulfilled. Obligations to Russia in this regard have been simply ignored. Even our free transfer of mineral fertilizers blocked in European ports have been obstructed. In fact, that is purely humanitarian campaign that should not in principle be subject to any sanctions. With these facts in mind, since 18 July we have refused to further extend the so-called deal, and we will be ready to get back to it, but to get back only if all obligations to the Russian side are truly fulfilled. I have repeatedly said that our country has the capacity to replace Ukrainian grain both commercially and as free aid to needy countries, especially since our harvest is again expected to be perfect this year. As the first step, we have decided to graciously provide 6 African countries 25 to 50,000 tons of grain each, with free delivery of these cargoes. Negotiations with the partners are going to an end. Among the priority lines of interactions, we see also further coordination of the approaches of the Brics participants on the subject of supporting small and medium-sized enterprises. This is an important part of the overall economic agenda of the Group of Five, which implies the assistance of the widest circles of citizens involved in business regarding the issues of administrative and tax regulation, digitalization, electronic commerce, and participation in the value chains. I would note that thanks to the state support programs, the entrepreneurs from the Brics countries successfully adapt to the constantly changing situation in the global market. They find new partners, new sales channels, attract additional funding, and use more actively modern technologies. It is equally significant to continue to develop cooperation within the Brics countries in the field of decarbonization of economy, reduction of man-induced impact on the nature, and adaptation to the changing of climate. Russia is ready to work jointly to promote more balanced approaches to the climate change in the international arena. Our country is consistently implementing the National Low Carbon Development Strategy. We plan to reach the carbon neutrality of the Russian economy not later than 2060, including through the introduction of technological innovations, modernization of infrastructure for access to affordable and clean energy, conservation of ecosystems on land and sea. We believe that the implementation of the climate goals can be facilitated by a variety of technologies, including those that have been in use for a long time already, such as nuclear generation, hydropower, gas motor fuel. To sum it up, I would like to reiterate that the multifaceted partnership and cooperation within the Brics is not only makes a significant contribution to ensuring sustainable growth of our states, but also generally promotes the healthy global economy and successful achievement on the global development goals and targets said by the UN to fight poverty, expand people's access to quality health care, eradicate hunger, and improve food security. Therefore, I'm confident that the Brics Business Forum and Business Council will continue the creative work aimed at the improvement of contacts between the entrepreneurial circles of the countries of the Group of Five and joint implementation of mutually beneficial projects. In conclusion, I would like to invite representatives of the business circles to our countries to come, to the Eastern Economic Forum in Russia that will take place in 10 to 13 September in the city of Vladivostok, where by tradition there will be discussion of issues that are of interest, including the business community of the BRICS countries. Thank you very much for your attention.
Spasibo. I thank the President for his remarks. It's now my pleasure to invite the Prime Minister of the Republic of India, His Excellency Prime Minister Modi, to take the podium. Please join me in welcoming the Prime Minister.
Excellencies, leaders of BRICS business community, my namaskar, good evening to you all. I am glad that immediately after arriving in South Africa, our very first engagement is the BRICS Business Forum. First and foremost, I thank President Ramaphosa for his invitation and for organizing this meeting. My heartiest congratulations and best wishes on the 10th anniversary of the BRICS Business Council. In the last 10 years, the BRICS Business Council has played a vital role in enhancing our economic cooperation. In 2009, when the first BRICS summit was held, the world was just coming out of a massive financial crisis. At that time, BRICS emerged as a ray of hope for the global economy. In the present times also, amongst the COVID pandemic, tensions, and disputes, the world is dealing with economic challenges. In such times, once again, the role of BRICS countries is important. Friends, despite volatility in global economy, India is the world's fastest growing major economy. Very soon, India will become a $5 trillion economy. There is absolutely no doubt that in the coming years, India will be the growth engine of the world. And the reason for this is that India has converted crises and difficulties into opportunities for economic improvements. In the last few years, we have carried out reforms in mission mode, and these reforms have helped in continuously improving ease of doing business in India. We have also reduced the compliance burden. We have removed red tape and instead laid the red carpet. There's been a boost in investor confidence due to introduction of GST and the implementation of the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Areas such as defense and space that were considered restricted have today been opened up for the private sector. We have laid special focus on public service delivery and good governance. By leveraging technology, India has taken a massive leap towards financial inclusion. The maximum benefit of this has reached our women in rural India. Today, with one click, millions of people in India get direct benefit transfers. So far, more than $360 billion of such transfers have been made. This has increased transparency in service delivery and reduced corruption and middlemen. India has the cheapest per gigabyte cost. Today, in India, from street vendors to large shopping malls, all use UPI, that is, the Unified Payments Interface. Today, India is the country with the highest number of digital transactions in the world. Countries like UAE, Singapore, France are also joining this platform. There are several possibilities of working on this with Brics countries also. The large-scale investment being done on infrastructure in India is changing the country's landscape. In this year's budget, we have kept a provision of approximately $120 billion for infrastructure. By way of this investment, we are laying a strong foundation for a new India of the future. Rapid changes are coming into effect in all areas of railways, roads, waterways, and airways. Today, in India, new highways are being constructed at a speed of 10,000 kilometers per year. The number of airports has doubled in the last 9 years. We have implemented the production-linked incentives with an objective to promote investment and production, with logistics costs reducing. The manufacturing sector of India is becoming competitive. India is amongst world leaders in the area of renewable energy. We are taking active steps to make India a global manufacturing hub in areas such as solar energy, wind energy, electric vehicles, green hydrogen, and green ammonia. It is but natural that with this, India will become a huge market for renewable technology. Today, India has the world's third largest startup ecosystem. There are more than 100 unicorns in India currently in areas such as IT, telecom, fintech, AI, and semiconductors. We are moving forward with a vision of Make in India, Make for the World. All of these efforts have directly had a positive impact on the lives of common people. In the last 9 years, the income of people has increased approximately 3 times. Women's participation in the economic development of India has been significant. From IT to space, from banking to healthcare, women have worked shoulder to shoulder with men and are contributing to the country's progress. The people of India have resolved to become a developed nation by 2047. Friends, I invite all of you to be a part of India's development journey. The COVID pandemic has taught us the importance of resilient and inclusive supply chains. For this, mutual trust and transparency are extremely important. By bringing our strengths together, we can make significant contributions to the welfare of the world, especially the global south. Excellencies, once again, I congratulate the leaders of the Brics business world for their contribution. I also thank my friend, President Ramaphosa, for his excellent arrangements for this meeting. Thank you very much.